Okay, um, I did this little presentation here or little overview as we're heading into more detailed examination of air exchanges and room temps and humidity, because over the years, having worked in healthcare in my two facilities, inevitably multiple times we run into the discussion about what can we do for the OR. And there are a number of issues and a number of special regs and codes and standards that affect that statement. We all probably know, or you've heard by now through your research and studies at this point, that humidity levels are meant to be kept below 60% on the high end, and on the low end there is discussion. It was 30%, and then it was lowered to 20%, and I think it may be a little bit lower than that yet. However, based upon regions and hospitals and risk assessments, you have to make a determination as to what your low end humidity level might be. But having said that, your ORs have fairly tight parameters for humidity and air exchanges and temperature. On the temperature side, though, and that's what this is primarily we're talking about today, which is relative to humidity as well, is the conversation where you'll get calls from folks that typically they're too hot. I don't know that I've ever really received too many calls over the years saying they were too cold, because of course they can always adjust the thermostat. But they can never get cool enough sometimes. And that's very specific to the type of procedure, specific to the doctor. It's specific to a lot of things. And again, this changes seasonally. For those of us who live in very humid environments and have humid areas, this can be more of a concern and more of an issue, where it's hard to drive that humidity level down far enough to get that comfort in that space. Now, having said that, there have been changes in our industry. When I first did this presentation, even this semester, I really was coming at it from the perspective of, we can only go so low as it relates to a psychrometric chart. And I was using that to drive the point of your understanding of the psychrometric chart, because there is a physical principle that prevents us going so low before we exceed that 60% humidity level, or if we go as low as they'd like us to go, we could make it rain in those spaces because we're going to hit saturation, and that's not feasible. And so at the end of the day, the conversation really needed to shift, and I really was kind of in a situation where we didn't really evaluate the possibility of adding some newer technology in terms of desiccant systems to drive that humidity even lower. But that being said, as I've gone through the research for this semester, and as I have looked at this reading and other things, it is apparent that the technology is proved out pretty well now, where you're not only having to have the technology to drive your temperatures down. In our case, in the second facility, we put a point of use unit that drove a supercool unit, we called it, that drove the OR temperatures down further. But we also, now we have the tool of desiccant systems that can drive the humidity down even lower, so you can actually get those 55 to 60 degree temperatures, which ironically, there's literature out there saying that those temperatures are not good for the patient. They inhibit the healing process. They're not good on the skin and not good on recovery for patients. So a lot of things happening in our industry as it relates to OR, but primarily this little presentation here is to set up the conversation on the psychrometric chart, getting well familiar with it, because even though you can put those desiccant systems in, and they are quite expensive, but the OR is one place where you might get the money for sure, because it's the OR. The psychrometric chart will allow you to have conversations, a very technical, or you can take that technical conversation, bring it to a high level, and show the folks that your equipment has its limits, and there are humidity limits, and there are dew point limits and saturation limits. And if they want to exceed those or go further than that, then they are going to have to look at a desiccant system, as we're going to research and study in this chapter. So I really didn't have necessarily that awareness or option, and never really was presented to me to put in a desiccant system during my career, particularly in our facility we were at. We were getting ready to build a new one anyway, so we weren't making that investment. And for many of you, that's going to be the case. Your facilities are not going to make that investment to put that desiccant system in. However, knowledge and awareness might make that happen. So this is really kind of a twofold conversation. It is, what do you do when you give it all you can? Well, that's exactly what you do. You show them technically that you've given it all you can, that your system has done all it can. And the doctors and the surgery aren't really going to hear that conversation, but your administrators, maybe the OR director, you need to show them and communicate with them and create a conversation with them, showing them the limits of your system, which may create the pressure to, again, upgrade to a desiccant system to drive that even lower, or like what we did, a point-of-use supercool system, so that you can ease up on the rest of the building and not have to drive temperatures. And we had 39-degree chilled water at times running down across our whole building, just so that we could take care of the OR. And then after we put our supercool point-of-use system in, we drove that down when we needed to, but the rest of the building we were able to let it run up to 45, 47 degrees, maybe even 49 degrees in the wintertime. So what a huge energy savings that was. So that being said, this conversation or this little presentation here that I'm doing right here, some of you are going to be stuck, giving it all you can, and then you're at your limit, and you can show them. Others of you will hit your limit. Use this information, use the charts, work with engineers, and come up with some new innovations in design to drive that temperature where they want or need it to be, if you will, or want it to be. And that's really going to make you a better HFL professional. So that's kind of the conversation set up for this segment. And again, I know we're very diverse out there. Everyone has some buildings that are brand new, and you have these systems in place already, and some of us are looking to upgrade to them. Well, other of us, it's going to be a long haul. You're going to have to work with what you got for quite some time when you work in the industry. Legacy systems can last anywhere from, I would say as many as 20 years before you actually get change. And that's hard for someone coming into a facility where you have a problem today, and it could be 5, 10, 15, 20 years before you actually address that issue in a new equipment, a new building, or something like that. However, my hope is that with this information, you are armed with the ability to expedite that 20 years down to maybe the next 1 or 2 capital cycles. So, wish you well. Hope you enjoy this. Again, study it well. I think this is one of those little nuggets in this program that will go a long way in helping you be looked at as the professional that you're all working to be.